At 2 a.m., my phone on the bedside table rang. The screen lit up with the name Amy. Concerned about a call at such an hour, I quickly answered. "Hello, Amy?" But it wasn't my daughter Amy on the line, it was Lily. "Mom's crying, please help," she said, her voice shaking, as if she was about to cry herself. "Dad hit Mom and left." Confused and alarmed, I hurriedly got dressed and jumped into my car. Entering the living room, I found Amy slumped on the floor, crying. Lily, who had tried her best not to cry over the phone, was now sobbing uncontrollably, her eyes and nose bright red, as she opened the door for me. "It's nothing serious," Amy said, her cheeks swollen and red. "What happened?" "Well..." Listening to Amy's story, I felt a chill down my spine. Holding the crying Lily close and stroking her head, I softly spoke. "The next one who's gonna be on the floor crying will be John." My name is Michelle, 57 years old. I lost my husband 2 years ago, and now I live alone. My joys in life are visiting my daughter and son-in-law's place, which is a 30-minute drive away, watching my 4-year-old granddaughter Lily grow up, and trading stocks, something my husband taught me. As I trade, I often consult my husband in my heart. Should I sell this stock now? Or should I wait a bit more? I feel like I can hear him advising me to hold on or to sell now. Strangely, when I follow that advice, I often profit. My daughter Amy is 29. She got married 5 years ago, and since Lily's birth, she's been a stay-at-home mother. Her husband John is a salesman. I used to think salesmen were well-paid elites, but apparently not. It seems John doesn't make much, and Amy started working from home as a writer last year. They rent a single-family home, which isn't cheap. Yet, juggling childcare, house chores, and writing seems challenging, and she hasn't been producing much work. That's because John wouldn't compromise on anything related to the house. If it's not cleaned up to his standards, he would complain. He won't tolerate any shortcuts in cooking, so apparently Amy can't use store-bought meals. Between housework and cooking, even with all the effort she puts into working from home, she only manages to make about $300 a month. That's why I help my daughter out financially every month. It's just money I made from my hobbies. If it helps my darling daughter and granddaughter, then I think it's worth it. Men have their pride, so I told Amy to just keep it a secret from John. John seems to be really busy at his job, and it doesn't pay well. When I visited, he would often take a quick shower and leave right after discussing something with Amy in the upstairs room. John, being a salesman sure seems tough. I need to prepare materials for tomorrow. It's work, so I can't help it. He looked like he was doing his best without complaining. I'm sorry to leave while you're here. I'll be back soon. I watched as John left in his suit and murmured with a sigh. I worry he's gonna wear himself out. At that, Amy gave a wry smile. She looked a bit discontented. I peered into Amy's face. Are you upset because he didn't get to eat the meal you prepared? No, it's not that. He said it's work, so it can't be helped. Amy replied with a hint of reluctance. If both your dad and mom are busy, and you feel lonely, just call Grandma, okay? This picture with Lily shows Grandma, I said, pointing at my icon, and set up Amy's phone so Lily could call me. I had her call me multiple times to make sure she knew how. I thought if I could be someone for her to talk to when she's feeling lonely, it would be good. I never expected this to come in handy in such an unexpected way. At 2 a.m., my phone, which was by my bedside, rang. Groggily, I searched for it. Wondering who would call at this time, I saw Amy's name lit up. Worried something might have happened, I quickly answered. Hello? Amy? But it wasn't my daughter Amy on the phone. Grandma, Mom's crying. Help! Lily's voice, on the verge of tears, desperately reached out to me. I was confused and didn't know how to respond. Dad hit Mom and left. I thought I misheard. He hit her? Dad did that to Mom? Yes, please help. Lily pleaded again. Can you put Mom on the phone? No. Mom won't respond, no matter what I say. I quickly changed and jumped in my car. Arriving at their house, I rang the doorbell, and Lily opened the door. Over the phone, she had tried her best to hold back her tears, but now her eyes and nose were red from crying. She must have been terrified during those 30 minutes before I arrived. Where's Mom? Over there. She pointed towards the living room. I patted Lily's head. As I walked down the hallway, with Lily hiccuping behind me. Entering the living room, I found Amy slouched on the floor, crying. Her disheveled hair and the sight of her covering her face with one hand crying didn't just unsettle Lily, it disturbed me as well. Amy, what happened? I gave her a gentle shake, and she looked up, startled. Mom. She murmured, looking dazed, seemingly not understanding why I was there. Where did he hit you? Show me. I gently moved her hand away. The cheek she had been covering was red and swollen. Amy let out a whimper and covered it again. It was just a slap. It's not a big deal. But Amy's voice trembled as she said it. I couldn't possibly think it wasn't a big deal. Even if it was just a marital spat, I couldn't believe he would hit her hard enough to cause that kind of swelling. What happened? I wet a towel and pressed it to Amy's face. Well, I never told you before, Mom, but it seems like John's been cheating. Cheating? Yeah, he told you he was going back to work the other day, but he actually demanded money from me. How could going back to work require so much money? I don't know, but suspecting him of cheating just because of that. I accidentally saw the notification on his phone, and the messages were from a woman with sweet words. He's demanded money several times before. That's why I refused today. And then he hit you? Yes. And he almost hit Lily too when she tried to stop him. I stepped in, and in the end, he took money from my purse and left. Listening to Amy's story, I felt a chill run through my heart as my eyes widened in shock. What shocked me the most was that John tried to hit Lily. I've been wondering if I can continue living with a man like that. Lily, clutching my sleeve tightly, suddenly burst into tears, probably recalling the traumatic moment. I was livid. Cheating was one thing, but laying a hand on family was downright despicable. I wanted to shout at him. Isn't it a father's duty to protect his family? But preaching to him wouldn't make a dent. If a lecture could reform him, he would have come to his senses the moment he tried to hit Lily and would already be showing remorse. Holding a sobbing Lily close and stroking her head, I said calmly, Next time, it's gonna be John who's crying on the floor. What? I smiled and nodded at Amy, who looked at me anxiously. Can you stay with John a bit longer? I'll move in with you. We'll buy a voice recorder and record all your conversations with him. But what if he demands money again? He might try to hit Lily. Record it when he asks for money. It's okay to give him the money. I'll always be with Lily. We need to gather evidence, after all. As long as Lily's safe, I'm okay with it. Amy nodded with the determined face of a mother. Then, I took a picture of Amy's face with my smartphone. The swelling would serve as evidence. The next day, I packed up my things and went over to Amy and her family's house. It seems Amy isn't feeling too well, so I'm gonna stay for a while and help with household chores and take care of Lily. At my sudden arrival, John looked surprised and had a guilty expression on his face. We can't trouble you like this, Michelle. I can help around the house and with Lily. His charming nature, typical of a salesman, I suppose. Lily's quite active, you know. I'd hate to see you get worn out. He said, showing genuine concern. That's okay. What I'm really worried about is whether the lunch I make will be enough for you. But keep it a secret from Amy. If you're still hungry, use this to buy something. I discreetly handed John $200. He scratched his head and said, Gosh, I feel kinda bad about this. But he put the money in his pocket anyway. He couldn't object to me staying now. From that day on, whenever John came home, I decided to stay in Lily's room and play with her for at least an hour. I try to always be with Lily and even take a bath with her. This was to give John a chance to talk to Amy without being wary of me. We're all done now. As soon as we finished taking shower, John would say with a smile, "Guess it's my turn then." Take your time. On the surface, I got along with John, but as soon as he stepped into the bathroom, I checked in with Amy. Did he say anything? He did. He thought it was odd when you suddenly decided to live with us. So, he asked me if you had said something. Amy giggled before continuing. John asked me if I had said anything to you, so I told him about you hitting me yesterday. He went silent, so I said, I wouldn't dare say something like that. And then what did he say? Don't tell her about it, or I'll hit you again. He didn't realize I was recording, so he dug his own grave. Seeing Amy laugh like that was reassuring. She seemed like a completely different person from last night. I hope my presence here can be of some encouragement. Amy and I nodded in agreement. First things first. The next evening, while John was in the bath, what we did was check his messages. We were looking for signs of an affair, but to our astonishment, John seemed to have relationships with several women. He has a child, yet he still does this? Amy voiced her disgust under her breath. If he was cheating with women like this a lot, no amount of money, even if he's rich, would ever be enough. Let's meet up. Maybe hit that hotel again. Yesterday was awesome. While slowly scrolling through these messages, I took a video of John's entire smartphone screen. Hold on a minute. Is this? Amy paused and stared intently at the screen. The chat showed the message. Come by my place again next week, Mr. Salesman. Dated from the previous week. Amy frowned at the message, especially at the heart emoji at the end of it. So, he was hitting on clients too? In sheer disbelief, words failed us. Looking up at the ceiling, we both let out a heavy sigh. The next day, we went for a legal consultation. A lawyer named Mr. Ramirez listened to our story attentively. He then told us that the video capturing the chat alone wouldn't suffice as solid evidence. He said that having pictures of them entering the hotel together, hotel receipts, or credit card statements would help. This message from last week. I paused the video we were watching, pointing to the message that read, Come by my place again next week, Mr. Salesman. So next week means this week, right? We might still catch them. We decided to hire a PI right away and asked him to investigate. The PI would look into John's activities during work hours, including how much time he spent at clients' places. 3 days later, the PI got back to us. After going through the report, we nodded in satisfaction. Fantastic, keep up the good work. We told the PI. Now that we had evidence of John's infidelity, we started planning a trap for him at home. I withdrew $50,000, some of the money I had earned from stocks, from the bank. I then placed it in a dresser on the second floor of Amy's house. That dresser was in the guest room I'd been staying in. The dresser was practically empty already. While John was at work during the day, we had been moving our clothes and personal items to my house, readying ourselves for a quick move. With the drawers being empty, the money will certainly stand out. Neatly bundled $10,000 bills with bands will surely catch John's eye. I gave John $200 the other day. How long do you think that'll last him? I asked, to which Amy replied with a tilt of her head. It varies when he asks. But if he thinks you have money too, he might have already run out. Well, the timing might be just right then. We quietly closed the drawer with the $50,000. That night, as usual, I took a bath with Lily. Just as I began to undress, my phone rang. It was a call from Amy. I had asked her to call me if John ever asked her for money. I told Lily to wait a sec, and tiptoed up the stairs. Outside the room I was staying in, I eavesdropped. Money again? What are you spending it all on? Shut up. Your mom might hear. Just give it to me. You gonna hit me again? If you don't want to be hit, hand over the money. I'm in a hurry. I heard the sigh of Amy followed by the sound of the drawer opening. What the? Why do you have so much cash? Just as the drawer closed, I slid the room's door open. I'm sorry, Amy, John. I was about to take a bath but felt dizzy. Could I lie down for a bit? Are you okay, Mom? I laid down, and Amy immediately put a blanket over me. Even John, usually smug, clicked his tongue softly and left the room without a word. After a while, I heard John leaving through the front door. We need to hurry. We gathered the money from the dresser, took our belongings, and left Amy's house. The next day, John received a call from Mr. Ramirez, the lawyer. A date was set, and with Mr. Ramirez present, the divorce discussions began. And so, I dialed up John's office and said, I have something important to discuss. I identified myself as John's mother-in-law and asked to speak with the manager. After conveying the matter, I requested they keep quiet about the conversation until the designated day and hung up. With that, everything was set. On the day of the discussion, John visited my house. I had told Lily to stay upstairs and not come down. John didn't hide his discontented face and, without greeting me, faced Amy and heavily sat down on the couch. Mr. Ramirez greeted him and handed over his business card. John hesitated for a moment before nodding in acknowledgement. So, what's this about you wanting a divorce? Facing Amy, John bluntly asked. Yes, I want a divorce. Also, I'd like alimony for abuse and child support. What? Are you kidding me? You leave the house saying you want a divorce out of the blue, and now you want alimony and child support? Mr. Ramirez, she's the one causing all this trouble. He banged the table, glaring at Amy, and turned a frustrated face to Mr. Ramirez. I have evidence of you cheating. And also of the physical abuse. She placed a photo on the table, taken by a private investigator, showing John and another woman exiting a hotel. Following that, I played an audio recording I had taken on my phone which had John admitting to the violence. Hey, you tricked me, huh? Recording sneaky stuff like this. Huh? He raised his voice and lunged at Amy, trying to grab her collar. Both Mr. Ramirez and I stepped in to stop him. Calm down. If you get too aggressive, you might find yourself in legal trouble. After Mr. Ramirez's stern words, John calmed down and settled back into his seat. While I'm trying to listen to both parties here, if this settlement doesn't proceed, Amy's considering filing for divorce or suing. She seems to have her evidence in order and doesn't seem to be backing down. Mr. Ramirez subtly urged John to be reasonable. Lost in thought, John finally spoke up, saying, But, in a loud voice, even if it was me who cheated, I still have the right to claim a share of the assets that Amy has, right? Yes, if you make the claim, replied Mr. Ramirez. Then I'm claiming. Too bad, Amy. I don't have any assets left. Hand over half of yours, John said smugly. Amy coolly responded, I don't have any either. What? After a long stare at a stunned John, Amy spoke again. I don't have any property or money. Liar. There was $50,000 in that drawer. Oh, that? That's mine. Upon hearing my words, John exclaimed. What? You see, my mom has been helping me out every month. Even the money I gave to you was from her support. If you divorce Amy, I don't see any reason to help you anymore. In fact, I told John in a low voice, I feel like pressing charges for you hitting my precious daughter. John turned pale. Unfortunately, it seemed more like the shock of not getting any money rather than my words that got to him. But we weren't about to let it end there. And these. Amy placed several more photographs on the table. They showed John visiting a house while on a sales call. You were there for an hour and a half. Do sales calls usually take that long? What were you doing inside? Upon hearing Amy's words, John snorted with laughter. You know, sales involve explaining the product and stuff. Sometimes it takes long. I get asked questions. Oh really? Amy smirked and placed another picture. So, explaining the product means you gotta strip down to your underwear? Must have been a heck of an explanation. In that picture, John stood by the window, shirtless. Through the sheer curtain, though he probably thought it concealed more than it did, a woman in lingerie, hugging John, was clearly visible. Her face was recognizable even through the lace. Ugh. John choked on his words. Amy placed a sheet of A4 paper. I had a detective keep an investigation going. This is a list of your mistresses. Compare this to your company's client list, and we'll know just how many customers you've been involved with. By now, John was rendered speechless. Just then, the doorbell rang. I stood up. Perfect timing. Hearing my words, John whispered. No way. I thanked the person at the door and led them to the living room. Seeing the person, John screamed in horror. Boss! Clutching the photos and list from the table to his chest, John cowered on the carpeted floor. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I'll pay alimony, child support, anything. Please, please forgive me. Amy and I exchanged glances inside. It's a shame, but you're too late. We've already made copies of everything. Amy and I presented the photos and list to the boss. As the boss went through them one by one, speechless, only John's sobbing echoed throughout the room. Unsurprisingly, John got fired. Moreover, he's lodged a claim for damages for cancellation of contracts by the company. The mistresses, too, are playing innocent, claiming they were tricked, seduced, or even forced by John alone. It's karma, I think. Of course, Amy's going after him for every penny in alimony and child support, using Mr. Ramirez as her representative. John couldn't pay everything he owed, and not even his rent. Rumor has it he was evicted from his home. Come to think of it, Amy mentioned seeing him doing some unfamiliar road construction work. He looked like he was about to cry as his younger coworkers yelled at him. As for us, the three of us live happily in my house. Amy started working. I look after Lily, but I don't find it hard at all. On the contrary, every day is fulfilling. Even though we live together, sometimes Lily calls with Amy's cell phone. Love you, Grandma. Hearing that cheerful voice always warms my heart.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn, Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.